morning, Gina Schoeman, and welcome to our Women's Day interview, a partnership between African brand architects and women of stature. Myself, Shereen Hunter, interviewing you today. We want to draw out all your wisdom and your nuggets as a woman that is successful in business. So welcome to the interview.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. So Gina, tell us a little bit about your business as a starting point.
Well, I run two roles. So I do work for a leading global bank as a managing director. I've got more than 25 years experience as an economist working in financial markets with corporates, investors, etc. But earlier this year, I started my own business, Gina Schoeman Economics. And I did it because I want to give back. Everything I've learned, everything I've experienced, and honestly, everyone I've met, I've been so privileged to be exposed to the most fascinating people. I've spent 25 years explaining economics to investors and companies and people, but I kept noticing how much of that stays behind closed boardrooms and technical jargon. But here's the thing, economics is far simpler than what people think. It's because it's everywhere around you. It's your salary, it's your rent, it's the price of bread. So I started Gina Schoeman Economics to hand people a decoder to show that once you can see it, you can use it no matter which industry you're in. And honestly, the part I love the most is the people. Mentoring, inspiring, and showing someone that this was never a closed club that they weren't invited to. So it's really about that inspiration, the mentoring, and my slogan, it's always the economics, has really just been something that has sat with me for so many years.
That's amazing. So tell me, what does your product look like, just in terms of what are you presenting to the market?
Well, so I do run my career with a global bank. And so that is pure economics, the analysis, et cetera, and the outlooks and the forecasts. But as Gina Schoeman Economics, I provide mentoring. So on a monthly basis, we have launched First Thursdays. It's always the economics. I have guests who arrive and actually just tell us about their journey. These are guests that economists like myself interact with. So far this year, we've had an agriculture economist, very well known, Wandile Solobo. We've had former Deputy Governor of the South Africa Reserve Bank, Kuben Naidu. But their stories start in incredibly interesting places with a lot of obstacles. Then I've also had Mandy Wiener, who many of you would know as a journalist.
Yes.
I've had Mamoketi Lajani, who's a fixed income analyst. So it doesn't have to be an economist. It's someone that I'm exposed to as an economist, so we can understand that no one's journey in life is a straight line. And the more humps and bumps you go through, the more interesting you become and the more empowered you become. So that's just the one element of the mentoring. I also do keynote speaking, especially around women in the workplace and about career development. I am passionate about giving back.
That's amazing. So you have all this experience, you have all this knowledge, you wake up one morning and say, I want to start my own business. What was it as simple as that, or were there other factors that contributed towards that huge leap of faith? Because it is a huge leap of faith.
It is a huge leap of faith, and no, it was not simple by any measure. I'm 46 years old. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I've got 3 children. So, life is very, very busy. And this is something I think most women would resonate with. The biggest obstacle I faced in starting this was myself. It was that persistent self-doubt. And we all know what that's called. It's called imposter syndrome. And honestly, Shereen, most people who would know me look at me flabbergasted that I have imposter syndrome, or at least had it to the point where I couldn't build out this personal brand profile of myself, my own business on the side. My husband was urging me for years to do it. But I do know the statistics show you that over 75% of senior executives struggle with imposter syndrome. So in my mind, I was sitting there with a huge amount of credibility, but I believed it sat with my firm, and that was very comfortable. But when I started to build something under my own name, that meant I had to unlearn that. And that takes a lot of courage. So putting your face out there and your voice out there, no big corporate name to stand behind. It's a very different kind of exposure. And you really just got to be brave. You have to find the courage. I was doing it on very thin margins, as many of the women listening would know. Late nights, early mornings, weekends, hours nobody saw. And we all know as women, you're often already working twice as hard just to be read at your true value. So being a mother, working full time, I was running on very thin margins. But some of the hardest building happened on very little sleep and carrying a lot. So maybe to sum it all up, the obstacle that I think I really overcame was that stretched invisible season, and deciding my own voice was still worth backing. So for more than 15 years, I planted a seed and grew roots so that when I finally broke the surface, which I believe I have now, I would be stronger than ever.
So let me ask you something. How long have you had your own business? And has a lot of that changed with a little bit more experience?
I think there are two parts to this. I've actually only registered my own business 6 months ago. So at the very beginning of the year, very new, very fresh. But I have been building my own personal brand for more than 15 years. And that's what I needed to bridge between my role in my career at my global bank versus my role in my career now as Gina Schoeman Economics, who can also show up on her own without a big corporate name behind her and be brave enough to tackle it.
And where do you think that confidence came from? Was it through just the experience and you know your stuff, you know what you're talking about, and that gave you the confidence? Where do you think that reserve of confidence came from? Because the one thing, and I've done a few interviews this morning, is the one recurring theme is personal confidence. Mm-hmm. And the women that are able to actually take that step, they have this reserve of confidence that I know I can do this. And that I know comes from somewhere. Is it faith-based? Is it experience? Is it support from family? Where does it come from? Identity?
I do think that I'm a grounded optimist. I used to shy away from that because it sounded a bit like toxic positivity, but I do see life with a glass half full approach. And it's simply because, I'm in my 40s and what do I have to lose at this point? Every day is worth living. It's your one beautiful life. So that grounded optimism, I think, helps a lot with confidence and deciding you're actually going to do this. A desire to help people, and knowing that I do have the expertise in order to really just break things down into a level playing field for everyone. I'm not a big fan of hierarchies, but the confidence also truly to launch this business came from my family. My husband had been urging me for years to do it. My children have been such a big support of it. And then, my brothers, my sister-in-laws, my mom, my dad, I've also got so many friends. So it's that village. And when you've got so many people rooting for you for so long, one day something really did just click. I woke up at the beginning of the year, and it was not time to any New Year's resolution, but I woke up at the beginning of this year and decided I've only got so much time left in my life, and I'm going till 100.
Love that. I love that.
I'm taking the bull by the horns.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it is amazing because you do wake up one morning and realize the clock is ticking. The luxury of I'll do it next year or in the next 10 years or one day when I'm older is now gone. It is kind of that midlife crossroads where it's like now or never. And it does help to have that familial support. So you talk about helping people. Specifically, what kinds of people do you want to help? Because I heard what you said at the beginning of the interview. You said, everybody thinks this kind of knowledge, institutional knowledge, is kind of behind locked doors in boardrooms and for a specific group of people, and you want to take that to a broader community. What does that community look like? Who typically are you trying to reach?
To be honest, it's very broad. So coming up on August Women's Day events, I'll be speaking to a lot of businesses and women in the workplace, hopefully men in the workplace too, so they can understand it in a very balanced way. So there's that audience. But what I've always also been so passionate about, and I don't want to aim this only at young professionals or students, because a lot of people will shift careers or pivot in what they do during life at any age. And so it's about that's why my audience is about trying to inspire, trying to help, trying to show people that you really have to be the best version of yourself, which is according to you and your beliefs. Be unapologetically yourself, obviously with the undertone of all the kindness and love that you can give to the world so that we can hold each other up. So my audience is really, in a way, it is, of course, the young professionals, those who are at a crossroads, those that are still fortifying their roots so they can break above the surface. But some people do break above the surface and they go through hard times in their life and maybe they want to pivot. And that's why explaining people's journeys, explaining how the economics works, making things far simpler than they actually ever, as simple as they could have been to begin with, because life is actually quite simple at the end of the day. I think that's where people realize there is no hierarchy. We're all the same. We're all human beings. We're all pioneering through this life, trying to do it on a straight line upwards, but realizing if we speak to one another that, in fact, it's a very wobbly line for almost everyone. And those wobbles along the way make up for the best stories to inspire others.
Definitely. I think that is the intention even of these interviews, is to say to people, look, let's just be real about this. What are the challenges that you face? How are other women overcoming these challenges? What are their whys? What is a good enough reason for you to make the change? So obviously the first biggest challenge you faced was the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt. And I think everybody has a little bit of self-doubt when they're going to launch into their new business. But once you overcame that and you're like, okay, I've made a decision, I'm now going into the space. Once you started to move in that space, did you find any kind of resistance that you then had to contend with?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, effectively, to get beyond imposter syndrome, or at least better at not struggling with it, I still believe we all have a little bit of it here. Nerves aren't a bad thing. I had to put down firmer boundaries in my life. And I also had to decide that not everyone is going to like me, and not everyone's going to like the way I do things, and not everyone's going to like what I say. But that's also okay, because a big belief of mine is that we have to agree to disagree. That's what makes all debates and discussions so rich. That's what makes us all so unique. So it's putting down those firm boundaries and becoming more unapologetically me, not becoming the version of me that I think every other person wants to see, which was honestly, at some point, I felt like I had multiple personalities.
Yes.
Now I'm just being me. And I'm so proud of that. And that's where that inner strength comes from, that builds up that confidence. I just think that it's stronger than ever, not despite all those slower years, but
Yes.
because of them. So again, it's that root system that you plant and you nurture until it's ready to crack above the surface.
Okay, perfect. So you're touching on very sensitive things here that I think almost all women will relate to. I always say, if you want the recipe for making yourself miserable, try and make everybody else happy.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
being a people pleaser is the one sure way that you are going to make yourself unhappy, because you're not moving from a place of authenticity. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be yourself, to disappoint other people, to tell the truth they don't want to hear. So I'm going to ask you in a very practical way. I'm going to deep dive a little bit into your personal experiences here. We talk about creating boundaries. That's a very broad It's a very broad description for something that runs very deep. Can you give us one or two examples, practically, of where you really needed to put down the boundaries for whatever purpose that you needed to put them down?
To be honest, this might sound quite harsh. As I mentioned,
We can do harsh.
we can do harsh. We can do harsh things.
Yes.
We have 3 children, and um, they are neurodiverse. At least one particular one is, and it really caused a huge amount of burnout in my adult life. I got diagnosed with parenting burnout after 10 years. And it made me the codependency that almost existed there, because you feel like you're never good enough. You feel like you're never a good enough mother. You feel like you're never a good enough economist or a good enough employer. You feel like you're not a good enough friend. And it's because you're stretching yourself across so much in order to be there for everyone. So one small boundary I put down that is very effective, but honestly, it sounds harsh. In the greater scheme of things, it's very good. You don't want to cotton wool your children. When I go into a meeting or into the gym for an hour, for whatever I need to do for myself, I put my phone on do not disturb and I forget about everything else. In the event of some horrible emergency, someone will no doubt find you, but you don't have to be so paranoid that if you're not on all the time, you won't be there. And it's very healthy also for people to realize that you don't always have to be there for them and you can't always be there because it instills, empowerment into anyone around you. I'm using my children as an example, but those boundaries are important. It creates independence, empowerment. It's wonderful. And then it leads to better, calmer, beautiful relationships.
That's amazing. And Gina, I'm a single parent, so I can completely identify with that because we don't have to be on all the time. We don't have to be available all the time. And we do need boundaries, and they start in our household because if you can't have healthy boundaries or the people that you live with giving you space, giving you time, allowing you to invest in yourself, how the heck do you take that to a broader community and stand up for yourself in a commercial environment, which is far tougher? And I think you touch on something that I think we could do a whole workshop around with Women of Stature, and that is guilty parenting and boundaries with parenting and burnout with parenting, because I think this is the real issue that not a lot of women in business or women in general are open about or want to talk about. So for me, this is a huge nugget in the interview. And I believe being honest and giving that feedback is really going to serve other women that watch this interview. And I'd love to unpack this further with Charlotte and with yourself, because I think it's a much needed topic to discuss. We need more successful moms that are willing to be vulnerable and share that information. So we have about 5 more minutes left of this interview. Obviously, there's the challenge of juggling, multitasking, home, business, children, your personal health. All this is happening. Resistance in a space because you are now your own new brand. There are days you get up and you want to save the world, and other days you might just get up a little bit tired.
Many of those.
The truth be told, on those tired days where you just feel tired and it's just a lot and you may be frustrated, what keeps you going? That you get up, have the shower, do your makeup, and still show up despite all of this?
It does depend on the day and how tired and how difficult the day is, but you have to learn to give yourself grace. You have to learn that if you had woken up not tired, but severely ill with some virus, none of that would have happened anyway. So give yourself grace, take a deep breath, decide what your true priorities for that day are, and don't try and do more than your capacity for that day. Just try and push. It's okay to push and reschedule and postpone things if you absolutely need to. I'll give a quick example. Just this week, we had an incredibly dramatic interest rate decision in South Africa, and it really caught everyone by surprise. It meant that my Friday was completely unexpectedly taken over by things that I had not planned for it to. I had to look at my calendar. I had one session scheduled in with a young professional where I would go and meet with her and say, how can I help? How can I support? And I looked at my calendar. I thought, I'm going to have to reschedule. And I hate doing that. I always try please everyone by never being late. And I do think those are very important disciplines. But sometimes life happens. So give yourself grace. Just explain what's going on and it'll be okay. You just shift it to the next week where it is possible to. But you have to give yourself grace. There's no such thing as balance. Balance changes every day. And I think the more self-aware you are, the more you know what your balance on any given day looks like or is healthy.
That's amazing. I mean, the grace and the boundaries almost sit on two opposite ends of the spectrum, because I think a lot of women don't give themselves that grace. They will push through, whether they're sick, whether they've been crying an hour before the meeting, whether they carry the capacity for that or not. And knowing when to slow down, I think, is critically important. I think that's part of the value of the message and responsibility we have as women in business that are reaching a certain measure of success, is to tell other women that it's okay to slow down.
Absolutely. And really just to also be honest, we're all human beings. Everyone is carrying something. I have had to say to a client, a male client once, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel this meeting because my son cannot go to school. His anxiety is too high today. He cannot go to school. And what's amazing about when you become that human, you realize that everyone else is experiencing something. The amount of empathy you get from those around you when you show up as your real, true, authentic version of what's going on in your life, you'll find they also have these things going on. I've had countless parents, moms, dads come to me and say, Gina, we also struggled through that. Let me tell you what helped us. Or, I see you, I can feel you. If you need anything, just let me know. So just be open, be honest, be human. It's so important.
No, it is, because I think the last image we want to project as businesswomen in South Africa is that you reach a level where it's untouchable. That vulnerability, it actually lets you off the hook, but it also gives other people permission to also be vulnerable. So, yeah, it's amazing. You're doing great work, Gina.
Thank you. I really used to get angry inside without showing it when people used to tell me I was super mom or put me on a pedestal. I wanted to almost scream back at them and say, are you mad? I have so many flaws, and that's also okay because we are flawed creatures. So that pedestal for a long time I struggled with, and then I decided I'm climbing down from whatever people have put me on.
I love that. I love that. And it's 100% the right way to do it, is to break the mold, to shift the stereotype, and to be real. I also from time to time do shocking things to people and say shocking things so that they just see me in a different light.
Yeah.
And they humanize me, because it is very easy when you have respect for someone or you work with them and you look up to them that you actually think they are less than human. So I applaud you for the work that you're doing. I look forward to more conversations with you. I think finances, economics, these are subjects women steer away from, or they just think they will never get it or they will never understand it. We need more people like you that make it palatable and that make women more comfortable in those environments. So definitely we will chat again. And thank you so much for opening up about boundaries with children. I personally resonate with that a lot. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And we'll be in touch with you again, Gina. And I hope you have the most fabulous, fabulous, fabulous Women's Month. Thank you for serving our country in business.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.